Thanks for the bailout, bro. I'll take it from here. Ryan said it with that easy grin of his, leaning back in the office chair like he'd just inherited something, instead of being handed control of the restaurant I'd saved with my own money. My name's Mike Villarreal. I'm 38 years old, and I just watched my family decide I wasn't good enough to run the business I'd rescued from bankruptcy. We were sitting in the cramped back office of Villarreal's Kitchen, our family's Mexican-Italian fusion place on the west side of San Antonio. 3 months ago, this restaurant was 72 hours away from closing forever. $122,000 in debt, landlord threatening eviction, vendors cutting us off. I sold my downtown condo to save it. Every penny of equity I'd built up over 5 years, gone. We've decided Ryan will take over operations, my dad said, not looking at me. Thomas Villarreal, 66 years old, built like he used to work construction before he started cooking. He's better with people and business stuff. You're not really built for this kind of pressure, Mike. My mom, Gloria, sat quietly in the corner. She'd perfected the art of disappearing during family confrontations, finding something to clean or organize until the uncomfortable moment passed. Today she was reorganizing invoices that were already organized. I looked at the folder in my lap. Financial projections, marketing strategies, vendor renegotiations I'd already started. Plans for the restaurant I'd been working in since I was 22, learning every position from prep cook to manager. The place where I'd spent 16 years of my life. What's my role going to be? I asked. Same as always, my dad said. Kitchen manager. You're good back there. Kitchen manager. Reporting to my younger brother who'd worked here part-time for 2 years when he felt like showing up. Ryan was already pulling out his phone, probably planning his social media announcement. He'd been talking about elevating the brand and modernizing our digital presence since he started working here. Meanwhile, I was the one who'd figured out how to cut food costs without losing quality, who'd trained 3 generations of line cooks, who'd kept this place running when nobody else could. Sounds good, I said. That was it. No argument, no protest, nothing dramatic. I closed my folder, stood up, and walked out through the dining room I'd helped redesign twice, past the family photos spanning 4 generations, through the front door my great-grandfather had painted by hand in 1987. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, not angry exactly, just clear about something I'd been avoiding for years. Then I pulled out my phone and called the property manager. The thing about being the reliable son is that people stop noticing when you're being reliable. They just expect it. Growing up, Ryan was the charmer. Easy smile, quick wit, could talk his way out of trouble or into opportunities. I was the worker. Steady, dependable, invisible when things were going well, essential when they weren't. When my parents opened Villarreal's Kitchen in 1999, I was 14. Ryan was 11. I started washing dishes that summer and never really stopped. By 18, I was running prep on weekends. By 25, I was managing inventory and training new staff. By 30, I knew every aspect of the operation better than my parents did. Ryan went to college for marketing, worked at an advertising firm downtown, dated a rotation of women who looked great in photos. He'd show up at family dinners with stories about client presentations and industry networking events. My stories were about vendor negotiations and equipment repairs. Mike's the backbone of this place, my dad would tell people. But Ryan, he's got vision. Vision apparently meant posting pictures of our food on Instagram and suggesting we add Korean fusion items because they were trending on social media. Never mind that our customers came for traditional Mexican-Italian combinations that my grandmother had perfected over decades. When the pandemic hit in 2020, everything changed. We lost 60% of our revenue in 2 months. My parents had never been good with financial planning. They were passionate about food and family, but numbers made them nervous. They started falling behind on everything: rent, utilities, supplier payments, equipment loans. By late 2023, we owed $122,000, and the landlord was talking eviction. My parents had already mortgaged their house twice. Ryan was living paycheck to paycheck in a shared apartment. I had my condo downtown, bought it in 2019, built up decent equity. It's just temporary, my dad said when I offered to sell. Once business picks up, we'll pay you back. I knew it wasn't temporary, but I did it anyway. Used every penny from the sale to settle our debts. The landlord insisted on transferring the commercial lease to my name since I was writing the checks. Made sense from his perspective. He wanted someone financially responsible as the primary leaseholder. I agreed without thinking much about it. Family is family. But over the past 3 months, I'd started noticing things. Ryan would arrive late, leave early, spend most of his time taking photos for social media. When suppliers called with problems, they asked for me. When equipment broke, I fixed it. When staff had questions about scheduling or procedures, they came to me. My dad would watch Ryan charm customers in the dining room and see the future of the business. He'd watch me handle a kitchen crisis or negotiate with a difficult vendor and see Tuesday. Ryan was better with people. I was just good at keeping things running. I didn't drive home after the meeting. Instead, I ended up at Brackenridge Park, sitting on a bench near the river, thinking about the last 16 years of my life. The realization wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, like most true things are. My family had never seen me as anything more than reliable muscle, good for heavy lifting, problem-solving, crisis management, but not leadership material, not worthy of respect or decision-making authority. Certainly not capable of running the business I'd just saved with my life savings. They'd looked at me sitting there with financial projections and growth strategies, and decided I wasn't built for management pressure. After 16 years of watching me handle every pressure this place could throw at someone, but Ryan could make customers laugh, so Ryan got to be the boss. My phone rang. The property manager. Mike, got your message. You said you had questions about the lease? Yeah. If I wanted to change the management structure of the restaurant, what would that look like legally? Change it how? New operating partner. Different leadership structure. He was quiet for a moment. Well, you're the primary leaseholder. As long as the business maintains current rent payments and insurance, you can structure operations however you want. You thinking about bringing someone in? I told him about Lucia Ortega. I'd been mentoring her for the past year. She was a line cook at a restaurant downtown. But she had real talent and a growing social media following. Food Network had featured one of her pop-up events. She'd mentioned looking for the right partnership opportunity. How fast could something like that happen, I asked. Couple days if you have the paperwork ready. You want to run this by your family first? No, I said. I don't think I do. That evening I called Lucia from my apartment. It was late, but she answered. Lucia, it's Mike from Villarreal's kitchen. Als, you have a few minutes to talk? Mike, sure, what's up? Remember that conversation we had about partnerships? About you looking for the right opportunity to run your own kitchen? Yeah? How would you feel about taking over operations at my family's restaurant? Equal partnership, your name on the sign, complete creative control over menu development. Long pause. Are you serious? Dead serious. I can have the paperwork ready by Thursday. Mike, what's going on? Did something happen? Something happened, I said. I finally stopped pretending my family respected me. And you want to partner with me? I want to partner with someone who understands that good food and good business aren't mutually exclusive. Someone who earned their skills instead of inheriting their position. When do we start? How about Thursday morning? After I hung up, I sat in my empty apartment thinking about the conversation I'd just had. Tomorrow, Ryan would show up at the restaurant expecting to start his new job as manager. He was going to be disappointed. Wednesday morning, Ryan arrived at Villarreal's kitchen with a notebook full of ideas and the confidence of someone who'd never actually run anything. I'd been there since 5:30 a.m., handling the morning prep like I had every day for the past 16 years. Our prep cook, Carlos, had given me a knowing look when I came in. Family gossip travels fast in Mexican families, and he'd already heard about Monday's management announcement. You okay, hermano? He'd asked in Spanish. I'm fine, I'd told him. Just keep doing what you're doing. Ryan walked into the kitchen around 9 a.m. with his coffee and notebook. radiating the kind of enthusiasm that comes from not understanding what you're actually responsible for. "So I've been thinking about the menu," he said, flipping through pages of notes. "We need to modernize. Korean-Mexican fusion is huge right now. I'm thinking kimchi quesadillas, bulgogi tacos, maybe some kind of Korean-Italian pasta situation." I was breaking down chickens for our lunch specials. "We're Mexican-Italian. That's what our customers expect." "But we need to evolve, Mike. Social media engagement is all about staying current with food trends. I've been studying what's working on TikTok." I stopped cutting and looked at him. "Have you talked to any of our actual customers about Korean fusion?" "I don't need to talk to them. The data shows what's trending." That was the moment I knew for certain this partnership was going to be a disaster. Ryan genuinely believed that running a restaurant meant following social media trends and posting pretty pictures. He had no concept of our profit margins, our customer base, our operational realities. "Ryan," I said, "we've got 38 covers reserved for lunch today. Maybe focus on that first." He waved dismissively. "That's operational stuff. I'm thinking bigger picture." At 11 a.m., our produce delivery arrived short on Roma tomatoes, a key ingredient for our signature arrabbiata sauce. Ryan was in the office updating our Instagram bio to include "under new management." I called our backup supplier, negotiated a rush delivery for double the normal price, and had Carlos adjust our prep to stretch what we had. By the time lunch service started, we were ready. But I watched Ryan take credit when our regular customer, Mr. Rodriguez, complimented him on how smoothly everything was running. "Just good management," Ryan told him with that practiced smile. Around 2 p.m., my dad stopped by to see how the transition was going. He found Ryan in the dining room talking to a food blogger who'd heard about our new direction. "How's the new structure working out?" my dad asked me later. "Great," I said, not looking up from my prep work. "Ryan seems energized. He's got real vision for this place." I kept chopping vegetables. Didn't mention that Ryan's vision mostly involved posting photos and following food trends that had nothing to do with what we actually served. That evening after we closed, Ryan pulled me aside for what he probably thought was a magnanimous gesture. "Look, Mike, I know this transition might feel weird, but I want you to know I value what you bring here. The kitchen management, the day-to-day operations, you're really solid at that stuff." He said it like he was doing me a favor by acknowledging my competence at the job I'd been mastering for 16 years. "I was thinking we could formalize your role," he continued. "Kitchen manager with a small raise, make it official." Kitchen manager reporting to him. A small raise for the guy who'd liquidated his savings to save the restaurant. "I'll think about it," I said. That night, I finalized the partnership agreement with Lucia. We were meeting at 6 a.m. Thursday to sign papers and begin the transition. Ryan had no idea what was coming. Thursday morning arrived gray and cold, the kind of January weather that keeps San Antonio quiet. I got to the restaurant at 5 a.m. and started going through financial records systematically, something I should have done months ago. What I found was worse than I'd expected. The $122,000 in debt I'd paid off was just the visible part. We still owed $31,000 to various vendors on extended payment plans my parents had negotiated without telling me. Our food costs were running at 37% of revenue when industry standard was 28 to 32. We were bleeding money on waste, over-ordering, and expired inventory that no one was tracking properly. But the real discovery came when I found emails on my dad's computer that he'd forgotten to delete. 6 months of correspondence with a commercial real estate agent about selling the restaurant. The emails went back to August, before I'd sold my condo, before the family meeting, before any of this started. My dad had been exploring putting Villarreal's kitchen on the market and retiring on the proceeds. The real estate agent's assessment was brutal. Current value approximately $180,000 given debt load and deferred maintenance. Recommend resolving financial issues and establishing consistent profitability before listing. Timeline: 12 to 18 months for optimal sale conditions. My dad had replied asking about accelerating the timeline. The agent suggested bringing in energetic management to improve the restaurant's appeal to potential buyers. Everything clicked into place. They hadn't made Ryan manager because they believed in his abilities. They'd made him manager because they needed someone with a public face to make the business look attractive before selling it. They were planning to cash out using the money I'd provided and leave both Ryan and me with nothing. Lucia arrived at 6 a.m. with a box of her knives and a thermos of coffee. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said. I showed her the emails, watched her face change as she read. "They were going to sell the whole time? Looks like it. And they never told you? Family communication has never been our strong suit." She sat down heavily in one of the dining room chairs. "Mike, are you sure about this partnership? Because if your family finds out what we're doing, they're going to find out anyway. The question is whether we do this right or we let them keep treating us like we don't matter." At 7 a.m. we changed the locks, not to keep people out permanently, but to control access during the transition. I was the leaseholder. I had every legal right to restructure the business however I wanted. Carlos arrived at 8 a.m. and found us working together in the kitchen, prepping for lunch service. "Changes?" he asked simply. "New partner," I said. "Same job, same pay, better food." He smiled and tied on his apron. "Good. This place needed new blood." At 9 a.m. Ryan showed up and found the front door locked. His key didn't work. He knocked on the window looking confused and then increasingly agitated. I let him in through the back entrance. "What's going on with the locks?" he demanded. "Security upgrade," I said. "There's been a management change." "Management change? What are you talking about?" I handed him an envelope containing a formal letter. Villarreal's kitchen was now operating as Villarreal and Ortega. His employment was terminated effective immediately with 2 weeks severance. "You can't do this," he said. "Dad made me manager." "Dad doesn't have the legal authority to make management decisions. I'm the leaseholder." "Leaseholder? What does that mean?" "It means I control the business operations." Ryan stared at the letter, then at Lucia working in the kitchen, then back at me. "This is insane. This is business." "I'm calling Dad," Ryan said, pulling out his phone. "Go ahead," I told him. "But you might want to ask him about his conversations with the real estate agent first." Ryan stopped dialing. "What real estate agent?" I showed him the emails, watched his face go through the same sequence of emotions mine had an hour earlier. Confusion, realization, anger. "They were planning to sell?" he asked quietly. "After you helped make it look profitable enough to attract buyers." He sat down in one of the dining room chairs, still holding his phone. For maybe the first time since I'd known him, Ryan was completely speechless. "Look," I said, "you can fight this if you want. Call Dad, call a lawyer, make a scene, but you'll be fighting me, not them. And I actually know how to run this place." Lucia came out of the kitchen carrying a plate. "Try this," she said to Ryan. He looked at her suspiciously, then at the food. Korean spiced carnitas with traditional Mexican rice and a gochujang cream sauce that somehow didn't compete with the other flavors. Ryan took a bite. His expression changed completely. "This is incredible," he said. "That's what happens when you base menu changes on actual cooking skills instead of social media trends," I said. He finished the entire plate in silence. When he was done, he looked up at me. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since Monday night." "Seriously?" "Sometimes the right decision doesn't take long to make." Ryan nodded slowly. "What about Mom and Dad?" "What about them?" "Are you going to tell them what you found out? About the selling?" "That's up to you." He considered this. "Can I ask you something else?" "Sure. Do you think I would have been good at this, managing the restaurant?" I looked at him sitting there, really looked at him, maybe for the first time in years. He wasn't a bad person. He was just someone who'd been handed something he wasn't qualified for by people who didn't understand what qualification meant. "I think you would have tried," I said. "But trying isn't enough when you're responsible for people's livelihoods." He nodded. "Fair enough." At 10 a.m. we opened for business as Villarreal and Ortega. Our first customer was Mr. Rodriguez, who'd been coming here twice a week for 8 years. "New sign?" he asked. "New partnership," Lucia said, bringing him his usual coffee. "Same great food, some exciting additions. As long as you don't mess with my chile rellenos," he said. "Never," she promised. The lunch rush went smoothly. Better than smoothly. Lucia's presence in the kitchen elevated everything. Her technique was cleaner than mine, her flavors more complex. Customers noticed. By 2 p.m. we'd served more covers than we typically did on a good day. Ryan left around noon, shaking hands with Lucia and nodding at me. "Good luck," he said. "I think you're going to need it when Dad finds out." "Probably," I said, "but not for the reasons he thinks." That afternoon, I called our suppliers to introduce Lucia as my new partner and update our ordering procedures. I called our insurance company to add her to the policy. I called our accountant to restructure the business entity. By 5 p.m., Villarreal and Ortega was officially operational. That evening after we closed, Lucia and I sat in the dining room planning menu changes and reviewing the day's numbers. "You realize your family is going to lose their minds when they find out about this," she said. "Probably." "And you're okay with that?" "I'm okay with a lot of things I wasn't okay with 3 days ago." My parents showed up Friday afternoon. I was in the kitchen working on prep for dinner service when I heard my dad's voice in the dining room, loud and agitated. He was talking to our hostess, demanding to know where Ryan was and what had happened to the locks. "Where's Mike?" he asked. "Kitchen," she said quietly. My dad pushed through the swing doors like he still owned the place. My mom followed behind him, looking smaller and more uncertain than usual. "What the hell is this?" He was holding the partnership papers Ryan had shown him. "You can't just restructure the business without consulting us." "Actually, I can," I said, not looking up from the onions I was dicing. "I'm the leaseholder." "We're your parents. And I'm the person who saved your restaurant with his own money." My mom stepped forward. "Mike, we need to discuss this as a family." I stopped cutting and looked at her directly. "Are we discussing it the same way we discussed selling the restaurant?" The kitchen went completely quiet. Even Lucia stopped what she was doing. "Selling?" my mom asked. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed them the email thread with the real estate agent, watched my mom's face change as she read. "Thomas," she said, "you told me those conversations were just preliminary. You said we weren't making any decisions." My dad's face was red. "We needed to explore our options." "Our options," I repeated, "after I liquidated my savings to give you those options." "That money was a loan," he said. "Show me the paperwork." "We don't need paperwork. We're family." I nodded and went back to my prep work. "Well, this family business is now called Villarreal and Ortega. You can see yourselves out." "Mike," my mom said quietly, "please don't do this." I looked at her. "Do what? Run a successful restaurant? Treat my partner with respect? Make decisions based on competence instead of favoritism?" My dad stepped closer. "This is still our restaurant." "No," I said. "It's mine." 8 weeks later, Villarreal and Ortega was thriving in ways the original restaurant never had. Lucia's menu additions had brought in new customers while keeping our regulars happy. Her social media presence was driving traffic we'd never experienced. Food and Wine magazine was sending a photographer next month to feature us in an article about innovative Mexican-Italian fusion in Texas. Our food costs were down to 29%. The deferred maintenance was completed. We'd hired 2 additional line cooks and increased wages for our existing staff. Most importantly, we were profitable. Actually profitable, not just breaking even. Ryan stopped by occasionally, usually late in the evening when we were closing. He'd gotten a job at a marketing firm downtown and seemed genuinely happier. The pressure of trying to manage something he didn't understand had lifted. "How are Mom and Dad handling everything?" I asked him one night. "Dad's still angry. Mom keeps asking if you'll come to Sunday dinner." "What do you tell her?" that you're building something they didn't think you could build. My parents never formally apologized, but they stopped fighting the partnership after the first month. Hard to argue with success when the restaurant was busier than it had ever been. The real estate agent called once to ask if we were still interested in selling. I told him to remove us from his listings permanently. Last week, I signed a 5-year lease renewal with an option for another 5. The property manager said we were the most stable tenant in the building. That evening, I sat in the dining room after closing, looking at the sign Lucia had designed. Villarreal and Ortega, from scratch. Simple, honest, accurate. Ryan was right about one thing. I wasn't built for the kind of pressure my family created. I was built for the kind I chose myself.